Hello everyone, I'm TJ McHugh, and today I'd like to welcome you to the Convergence of Social Media and SEO, sponsored by Optify. Today we're going to explore how the recent changes in real-time search, Google Instant, and social media are changing how people find information. Online markets are changing as search gets more social, and social integrates search. Your customers are interacting on an increasingly social level, and the online conversations they're having are directly impacting search results. This is why it's essential for businesses to make sure they're at the intersection of search and social. Today, we have three very knowledgeable and influential speakers in the fields of search and social media here to discuss this evolving phenomenon. First, we have Liz Strauss, CEO and founder of SOBCon, a very famous event that she does each year. And we also, Liz will be starting us off with a high-level view of the social landscape. Next up, we have Erez Barak, co-founder and VP of products at Optify, who's also our sponsor, which provides an integrated software solution that helps marketers improve their online marketing and provides real-time insights into search and social media. Third up, we have Fishkin from the equally famous SEO Moz, who has a very active blog and community in the SEO and social space. And both of those guys, Erez and Rand, will be giving us real-time research results on social and search and how to improve and track your social content. Liz, I'm going to let you jump right in here and start us off.
Awesome. Okay. I'm looking at a picture of me, so I guess it's time to go to the next slide. Social web complicates relationships. I spent a lot of time talking to people who worked before the web, people who worked after the web, and there's one thing that happened before the web and after the web. When the internet came along, we've moved from a place where we were geographically niched before we got on the internet. And so before the web, you really only had to do two things to grow a business. You had to give people more things to buy and more opportunities to buy them. And then suddenly all along came the internet, and those customers not only have a world of more things to buy, but they have a world of more opportunities to buy them. They can buy them online, offline, via the mainstream media, via email, direct mail, and telephone the way they used to. But now they can also buy them from places from Alabama to Zimbabwe via Google, social sites, e-commerce, etc. And now a third thing has been added into the mix, because I used to only be able to tell my neighbors and my friends and the people I worked with whether I liked your product or your service. But now I can tell my 72,000 friends on Twitter that you have or you haven't delivered and how much I love you or I don't. If we can look at the next slide for a minute. Go ahead, TJ. So the thing that's really important about knowing this is that a loyal customer can't actually ever be replaced. I mean, you can go get a new one, but the new customer doesn't replace the old one. You know, you've lost revenue. The average order of an old customer doesn't get replaced by a new customer. You always could have gotten the new customer. You know, you've lost the opportunity cost of finding that new customer. Oh, lovely. You've lost the chance to the lifetime order buy of that new customer. So if I spent $5 a month, $60 a year for 10 years, I'm worth $600 to you. If I spent $5,000 a month, I'm worth $60,000 to you per year for my lifetime. You know, so an old customer doesn't or a new customer doesn't replace an old customer. And even more important than that, research shows that if I desert you, I'm likely to tell at least 3 of my friends about why I did that. And so you're likely to lose 3 customers that you might have had as new customers. So if we can go on to the next slide. This is just a little background. Go ahead, TJ. So when we moved to the internet, we're back to what really changed when we moved to the internet. And one of the things that changed a lot is when my father opened his saloon in 1933 at the height of the American Depression, on the day that Prohibition was repealed, which, by the way, was good marketing to open your saloon on the day that everybody was ready to have a legal drink. it was important to be at the corner of State and Main, or in Chicago at the corner of State and Madison, because that's where all the traffic was. All the traffic went by there. Traffic is really important because that's how people find you. Now where all the traffic is on the front page of Google or Bing or Yahoo. And so what brings traffic to the front page of Google, Bing, or Yahoo is not geography anymore. It's not location, location, location. It's solutions. People think that Google, you know, unconsciously we think that Google is in the business of search, but Google is really in the business of selling ads to people who want to be found. So if you want to be found and you don't want to buy those ads, you have to be answering the questions that people are searching for. And what people type in the solution box there, the search box, are questions about information that answer their, or are questions that look for information that solve their problems. And search is really only half the equation. Findability is where we're really at. Search is what brings people to you. I have a story about my husband who, he's an engineer, and though I carry an iPhone, he carries a BlackBerry, so we get along really well. And he got a new BlackBerry, and as happens, BlackBerry did a push application to his phone, and suddenly he had Flickr. And as an engineer, he liked it and played with it for about a day and a half. And then he decided it was taking up too much space on his phone, so he wanted to remove it. Being an engineer, well, he had the firmware, so he went back to yesterday's firmware. And sure enough, the Flickr app was still there. So being an engineer, he went back to the day before's firmware. And sure enough, it was still there. And being an engineer, he had the firmware from 3 weeks ago, and he reloaded that, still there. And over the course of that Saturday afternoon, he got a little more and a little more and a little more upset until he finally said Monday morning, I am calling RIM, I am calling AT&T. I have done everything to get this app off my phone. Because being an engineer, he looked at the internet like a book. And I said, well, hold on one second. And I went to my computer and I typed in uninstall Flickr from my BlackBerry. And sure enough, I ended up on a page on crackberry.com, printed it out, handed it to him, and 3 minutes later, his Flickr app was off his phone. That's the ultimate in findability, and Crackberry had two new fiercely loyal fans. One was my husband, who now had the Flickr app off his phone, and the other was me, who had, because my husband had the new Flickr app off his phone. And so findability, the ability to speak in the language of the people who are searching, so when they type, they can find you, is the ultimate solution. Okay, TJ, if you'll move it on. Awesome. So let's look at some of the tools that work online to help us make those relationships with people. I think one of the most awesome sites on the internet is the Apple Education site. And in the days of broadcast, we used to be able to put our message out there and hope it landed wherever it landed. Now, because I can talk to my friends and neighbors about you, now because everybody's talking to me from Alabama to Zimbabwe, I have to have a clear signal from the noise. And one of the ways to do this is to respect the fact that my time is important. So does your website really work for people? When was the last time you looked at your website? You know, is it faster, easier, and more meaningful? I'm trying to look at this question over here. Let's save that question for later, Nick. Your blog, so if your website is like your store, your blog is like your meeting room, your coffee shop, a place where you can have conversation. It's really a place where you can build expertise. I have 4,300 blog posts on my big blog, and you know, the average website I think has between 10 and 15 pages on it. Now, if you go back to the idea that Google is in the business of selling space, ad space for people who want to get found, I have 4,300 pages that Google can index and hang ads on, whereas your 15-page website only has 15. Who is Google going to index more and pay more attention to? Me or you? No wonder Google loves blogs. But people love blogs too because it's a chance to find out who you are and what you're about. It's a chance to be helpful, not hypeful. And one of the best examples I've ever seen of the use of a blog was by a web hosting company who basically wrote all their blog posts about their customers. They wrote about customers. One I remember clearly and distinctly was a customer who built sculptures out of leftover metal. And they told the whole story of his business in a blog post. And suddenly you had this picture of a web hosting company who really cared about their customers and the business they were in. So you can use your blog to build a relationship, and the relationship builds trust. And from that trust, oh my God, this web hosting company cares about the people that they do business with, and suddenly you start to care about the people who run the web hosting company. Trust is really what sets the stage for the size of the offer that you can make to people, because most offers that don't work because what I'm asking or offering you is far too big for how much trust you have in me when I'm making the offer. If we can go to the next page. So now let's take the other big sources and put them in the room. LinkedIn is like the world's biggest chamber of commerce. Imagine if you could have a chamber of commerce that actually pulled resources from all over the world and really brought in great intelligent minds. You can find people and resources of all kinds all over the world and ask questions and gain their expertise. You can also put out a question that shows your own expertise. LinkedIn is primarily a professional site, so it's not a place where you go to sell. It's a place where you go to learn and share what you know. So go there knowing what you don't know the same way you might go to your local Chamber of Commerce. The next page. Do we have the next slide? Twitter, I call Twitter the world's largest networking room and possibly the new executive washroom. Twitter is a really powerful tool, and if you think that we're talking about what we eat for lunch on Twitter, then you probably don't get the power of the tool. By nature of the content that you curate, i.e. the things you share on Twitter, you can identify yourself as someone who cares about business or healthcare or daycare centers or that you care about the law, and that will attract people to you because they care about those things too. There's an unwritten rule on Twitter that for every one thing you promote for your own good, you promote 12 other people. Chris Brogan, a friend of mine who has 179, probably by now 184,000 followers on Twitter, is a master at using Twitter to promote other people. And if you know him very well, what you see is Chris promotes 12 people, and then 12 people say, Chris is a nice guy. The best promotion is promoting other people. The other thing that's beautiful about Twitter is it gets relationships started, but people who don't use the tool don't understand that we don't keep those relationships online. We take them offline and have things like tweet-ups or meetups. And one of the things that's much more attractive about an offline Twitter party as opposed to an other offline networking kind of party is that when you walk in the room, you know for sure you have something in common with everyone else in the room. And that makes it a much more common experience and a much more comfortable experience for those of us who aren't really good at networking. And so if you start following people who are your potential customers and listening and talking to them online and engaging with them online and then meeting with them offline, you've already self-sorted into a set of qualified relationships that can turn into some serious business. If we can go to the next slide. It's like I feel like I'm running a race here. So go.
All right, Liz. Thanks so much for the high-level view of the new social landscape. And everyone, if you look to your right side on your browser or your WebEx dashboard, you'll see that there's a poll there. We're going to do a fast poll for 30 or 40 seconds here and get where do you spend most of your time online. And then I'm going to turn it over to Erez Barak, co-founder of Optify, who's going to give us a lot of great insights on some research that they've done on social and search. We're going to show the real-time results in just a second here. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, hey everyone, this is Erez Barak, and when we're looking at this convergence of SEO and social media in Optify, what I'm mostly hearing is a bunch of questions. How do I do this? Does this matter? Which metric should I look after? Is it really important to go after that or focus on SEO? And for this webinar, we took a data-driven approach and boiled down these set of questions into 5 main questions we hope to give you, or I hope to give you, actionable answers for. So the first slide, or the first question is, where do people spend their time? And I'm happy to see the results of the poll and sort of aligning with the data we're getting from Nielsen. So if you look at the slide, this is a nice description of where people spend their time. What Nielsen did is boil it down into 1 hour a day and said, okay, assuming you only had 1 hour a day on the web, where would you spend most of the time? Now, the blue section on the dial is about 25% of the time, and that's really aligning to social networks and different blogs people spend their time on. Now, I'm looking at the results coming in, and I see 32% of everyone who answered the question is really about social networks and blogs, and spends most of their time on social networks and blogs. If you compare that to search, that's 7x. So this small light blue sliver on the bottom left of the dial, that's search. And that's about 2 minutes a day. Now, the impact is still huge, but you could see that the differentiation between the time is really key here. Most of the time is spent within social media, social networks, and blogs. This is also driving behavior. So as more people spend their time on social networks, it drives the rest of their behavior, as I'll show in my next slide. So one more point on this question before I move to the next time. We were looking at where people spend their time. It's also important to note where people spend their resources, where people spend their budget. We took this great set of data out of Marketing Sherpa, who back in the summer are asking online marketers, is your budget going to decrease or increase for the different online marketing activities you see? So the top 2, after maintaining and building great websites, were searching or search, which 62% of the people said they'll spend more on, and social media, which 53% of the people said they'll spend more on. So, answering where do people spend their time, it's quite clear. It's clear from our poll, it's clear from the data from Nielsen. Most of the time is spent in social media networks. Add to that where most of the people spend or plan to spend more budget, and you're seeing a lot of alignment between search and social media. The second question is, are they connected, right? We have this great title, Convergence of Search and Social Media. Prove to me they're connected. So I'm looking at 2 types of trends. One is the overtime trend, and one is the real-time trend. I'll start with the overtime trends, and a big surprise was the top Facebook status trend in 2010 happened to be this acronym, HMU, Hit Me Up. And that means you know, give me a phone call, page me, instant message me, or email me. So hit me up, and you'd expect that to be very common in the social network world. So, you know, it started at the early 2009 where 20 posts a day were saying HMU. Then by the end of 2009, and you could see this Facebook chart start trending up, there were 1,600 posts a day mentioning HMU. In 2010, aggressive growth drove HMU, ending at, you know, by the end of the summer of 2010, about 80,000 mentions a day for HMU. Now, the interesting thing is, and I'm looking at the chart from Google Trends, is that the same acronym, the same keyword also started trending in search. Now, you wouldn't really expect people to search for HMU, but looks like what's happening in the social networks, what's happening in Facebook in this case, is really driving what's happening in search. Looking at a real-time trend, and that you know, is a very specific. I'm going to show a very specific example around this before I show some aggregate data to back it up. Fleet Foxes is a band. It's actually a local band in Seattle. They're a folk band, and what's interesting is they trended on Twitter. They trended on Twitter on Monday. So I went to Google Instant, and I started typing F, then L, then E, and what I got from the Google Instant results, and you can see that on the bottom of the slide now, as a first recommendation is Fleet Foxes. So the Google recommendations for Google Instant feed off a lot of metrics. One interesting metric is that trend in real time. So you see a nice connection between what's happening in Facebook, what's happening in Twitter, and what's happening on search. Now, don't take my word for it. You can see the two big engines, Bing and Google, claiming, hey, we're now taking into account social signals, both messaging that out loud and clear at the end of December. First Bing expanding to use Facebook likes, and then Google claiming to do the same. So they seem to be connected. Now, drilling down, my third question is, okay, let's look specifically at Facebook. Does Facebook matter? And the chart I put together is based on aggregate data and based on Optify's research. And on the y-axis, you see the search rank. So being on top is good, number one, then going down all the way to position 30. That's the y-axis. On the x-axis, what I put in is the average or median number of Facebook likes the URL who's ranking is getting. So if you look at number one on the top, looks like there's good correlation or interesting correlation between ranking on number one and then having a big blue bar, which means my URL has a ton of likes in Facebook. And as you drop down the ranks, there's a pretty evident correlation between how well you rank, and this is based on Google data, and how much you're liked in the Facebook world, how much this URL is liked in the Facebook world. So seeing great correlation there, it does raise a question, sort of a chicken or an egg. Okay, so if I rank, people are going to share my URL, and if it's a great URL, other people are going to like it. So ranking can drive likes. On the flip side of that, I could have a URL I shared, everyone likes it, and that, just like the HMU example, starts driving more search. So as a second step, what we're doing is continuing this research and seeing what has more effect on the other. Is it ranks to likes and likes to ranks? And this is where head terms and long tail terms are probably going to differ. So to answer, does Facebook matter? I would say it's an easy absolutely. Whatever is happening out in the social networks is really affecting our ranks. Question 4, and reminding you the title of this webinar, the convergence of SEO and social media. I want to make it clear, it's not only about social. Social is coming in and really affecting the search landscape. But engines and the search engines are constantly changing. You hear Bing changing, you hear Google changing, you hear new metrics that are constantly changing that search landscape and your search engine result pages. And you still need to optimize and align to these new metrics. So what I have on the chart here on the slide I wanted to share with everyone is, again, based on Optify's research, the y-axis is my rank. Being on top is good, so rank number 1, going all the way down to rank 30. The red dotted line is where page 1 ends, and below that is page 2 and on. And what we've plotted is the average page load time for those URLs ranking on page 1, and then those URLs ranking on page 2. And we've also plotted a trend line, and what you could see is a clear correlation between ranking on page 1 and having a faster page. This is just an example of the latest metric we've seen from the search engines, but it does, I mean, the main takeaway here, it is about social. Social does affect this, but keep your eye on existing and new metrics as you execute your SEO campaigns. To my last question before I turn this over, what do I need to track? And maybe the question should really be, do I need to track? So it's a world of change. Search is changing. Social media is evolving. They're both affecting each other and converging. Now, some changes affect the long tail. Some changes affect the local long tail. Some changes only affect head terms. So the key here is, while you choose your tactics, choose your strategy, try to affect the metrics that matter, keep measuring in real time how it affects your business. Now, there are 3 pillars or 3 dimensions for measuring here. One is, I would call them the classic SEO indicators. Am I ranking on keywords? How am I doing in Google? How am I doing in Bing? How am I doing internationally? How am I doing locally? How am I doing for a specific set of focused keywords in terms of ranks? Important, but not sufficient. Second is page scores. So my on-page activity. I'm using custom rules. I'm using baseline rules. What do I need to do in order to make my pages shine when it comes to the search engines? And third, completing the SEO trifecta is next. Make sure I'm going after the right link opportunities, getting links to align with my keywords and my page content. So that's around SEO. The second piece, and we've started talking about convergence, are the social indicators. So keep tracking things like Facebook likes, Facebook shares, Facebook comments. Keep tracking retweets and followers. And more importantly, in order to test their effectiveness, make sure they're aligned with the SEO metrics, as well as check the social influence of the different contributors in the space. And last, and at the end of the day, as you execute an SEO campaign or execute a social media campaign, think of the business outcome. Think of the business indicators. So if your business or your blog is all about page views, go for it. Keep testing that. Keep testing that in comparison to SEO metrics, social metrics, and your actions. If it's about number of visitors, again, make sure you have that visibility. Where it really gets interesting is when you start checking conversion. Okay, so people come to my site, I'm getting an exciting number of page views and visitors, as well as visits, but am I getting them to convert? And the fourth piece is, am I getting revenue out of it? So I've ran an SEO campaign. I've taken social media metrics, social media activities into account. Does that, at the end of the day, not only provide traffic and conversion, but how does that align to revenue? So being able to measure your SEO metrics and indicators, social metrics and indicators, and business metrics and indicators gives you the full picture of how effective your campaign is. So I'll hand this over to Rand. I hope these 5 questions sort of help set the tone of how to think about executing your strategies in the context of SEO and social media convergence.
Thanks, Erez. I'm glad this is going to be available for download. That was a ton of great info. So everyone who's not able to keep up on the note-taking, which I was doing as well, it'll be available for download. We'll email it to you. Next up is Rand Fishkin. Rand is the founder and CEO of SEO Moz, a very popular SEO firm, has a great active forum, and can answer tons of questions on the SEO front. And Rand, take it away.
Thank you very much, TJ. So actually, SEO Moz doesn't do any consulting. We're purely software, but we do have a blog, and we certainly love to have people come there. So I have a bunch of info that I'm going to cover as well. I'm glad this is going to be available for download. And I saw some of the questions. I answered a few of those in the chat, and I'll continue to try to do that. So the first thing that I want to dive into is talking about this impact that Erez talked about. So he showed some interesting correlation data Yeah, I'd be totally curious to see sample size stuff and data about which types of queries are in there. We've done a bunch of correlation data collection, obviously at SEOMOS too, and we hadn't seen that impact. But the last time we did it was, I think, October of last year. So it's awesome to see that potentially this correlation on Facebook likes and maybe tweets is increasing, because we've certainly observed this behavior. And I'm going to show some specific examples that will back up kind of the aggregate data that Era has shared. So first off, if you haven't seen it yet, Search Engine Land, oops, sweet daisies. Oh, yeah, there we go. Search Engine Land did this great interview with Bing and Google. Danny Sullivan from Search Engine Land did this great interview with Bing and Google. And check this out, right? This is Bing and Google literally coming out and saying, yes, it's true, we use tweets and we use Facebook shares as signals similar to the way that we use links. And not, because of the no-followed links or because of where they appear elsewhere on the web. Like, we literally use them directly. And obviously, this means quite a few things, right? So for those of us who are wondering, hey, that data that Era showed, is that correlation or is that causation? I think it's very likely here that the Google and Bing are saying there's some causation or causal elements going on there. So that's pretty sweet. Now, what's interesting too is that both of these people, in this interview, they both talked about this concept of author authority, right? That essentially an individual participant in the Twitter, Facebook ecosystem has this metric calculated about how important they are, and that they're essentially trying to determine the same kinds of things that, Ryan brings up a clout, for example, right? Clout, which is a measuring tool for the influence on Twitter or Facebook in the social world. And that essentially Google and Bing are trying to determine how important people are. I think, Clout's metric, I've talked to them about it. I think they make intuitive sense, but I'm not sure that what they calculate towards, or that they're calculating towards something specific. Google and Bing obviously are trying to favor relevancy. So they're going to be looking at a bunch of metrics. Let's go one slide further. Should have a bunch of arrows pointing. Awesome. So you can see, right, cool stuff like here's the number, right? There's all sorts of metrics that Google and Bing could be considering when they look at someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's my personal favorite person to follow on Twitter, just because I think he's awesome. You can see he wears that astronomy moon vest there, right? So he's got, there's things that they can look at, like who's following you and how many people are you following back, and what's the ratio, and who are the people that are you following, and are they important people? Are important people following you? Do you have a verified, trusted account, right? Twitter and Facebook both have these things where they'll figure out, oh, this person, right, maybe celebrities or politicians or influential people on the social services, this is actually this person, we've verified it with them, we know that it's owned and controlled by them, right? This is their real account. Do they tweet quality stuff? Are other good accounts retweeting them? Do they ever tweet spam? All these kinds of metrics can go into that author authority stuff. And so if you are sharing content via Twitter, via Facebook, you've got to be thinking pretty hard about this, not just about your own account, right, which is definitely important. You have to be thinking, well, how can I make myself look good in terms of metrics to the engines, and make sure that my tweets and my Facebook shares and all that kind of stuff appears authentic. It draws in comments, it draws in clicks, it draws in retweets and resharing on Facebook, those kinds of things. But also thinking about, hey, if I'm approaching other people to help me with marketing, my social media, do they have these good metrics too? So let's move to the next slide. We actually did a test, right? Because we were sort of curious, and we thought, hey, there's this good correlation data. There's Google and Bing saying that it matters. Well, let's see. Let's see if it really, really matters. So we tried this test with a nonprofit here locally in Seattle, See Your Impact, which does awesome work. We love these guys. We don't do consulting anymore, but we help a few nonprofits, these guys, and Seattle Children's Hospital and the United Nations and a few others with some SEO assistance on demand kind of thing. And they had this produced these pages specifically for us. So they wanted to rank for fighting hunger, ending hunger in Sierra Leone, specifically around this issue, which is a big problem. Sierra Leone having one of the world's biggest problems around starvation and poverty and these kinds of things. So Here you can see page A, right, which they launched, and we essentially launched a blog post that said, hey, dear SEO fans, like, this is a good test, let's give this a shot. Please link to this one and tweet about this one. And lots of people participated in that test. You know, we're lucky to have a very engaged audience on our blog. So you can see there, 36 linking root domains, right, 36 people, this is according to Open Site Explorer data, Linkscape data. And you can see 36 linking root domains, 620 external followed links, right? It's got a fairly substantive Moz rank, but no tweets, right? So people were very respectful. They did not tweet to this page, which I thought was pretty cool. But page B, right, which is the ending hunger version of the page, it has only one link. It comes from Topsy, which is like a tweet aggregator. And they saw that this was a very popular tweeted page, so they linked to it. And they've only got one link. It's 1.25 Moz rank. That's pretty low. Moz rank being similar to sort of Google's page rank in how we calculate it. But 521 tweets according to TweetMe, right? So that's a lot of individual people tweeting. And let's go to the next slide and see what happened after we did this experiment. Oh my goodness. That's the tweeted page, right? This is as of January. This is as of a few days ago. Here's page B ranking, right, for Hunger Sierra Leone. Where's page A? It's nowhere to be found. In fact, even if you search the exact title tag, right, the Fighting Hunger Sierra Leone, you will see it in the results. But the Ending Hunger one is clearly outranking it, which I think is absolutely fascinating. It sort of suggests that, hey, you know what? Google maybe is putting a lot of weight on the tweets specifically. And this experiment certainly is not perfect. You can imagine that there could be conflating factors or other variables that we don't know about that are going into this. Certainly Open Site Explorer doesn't, or Linkscape doesn't crawl all the pages that Google has. Maybe there's other links that point to it that we just haven't seen. But I would strongly go out on a limb and say, hey, this seems to suggest that tweets have more than just a temporal impact, that they may have a long-lasting impact. And in this case particularly, one thing that I would note is I believe, I can't say for certain, but I believe that Google is looking at the two pages and thinks they're duplicate content, and therefore is ranking one over the other. The fact that they're ranking the tweeted one over the linked to one is shocking to me, very frankly. I would not have expected it. I wouldn't have predicted it. Like I said, it's only one test, but I think it's really interesting to see this type of a result and to take away the fact that, hey, you know what? Those tweets really matter. And this is really important because when you think about your SEO and your social media, they're no longer two separate knowledge divisions, right, of a marketing platform or of a marketing team. That knowledge needs to be institutionalized and overlapping, right? So if you have someone who's doing SEO, they better know all the things about social, how things spread, what are good metrics that matter there, how to measure it, how to improve it. And likewise with social media folks, they better know how to do SEO, what matters in terms of that, that they're tweeting and sharing links that are going to help them rank in the search engines as well, because these social media factors are very temporal. The clicks that you get if you use something like Bitly, you can see that click stream trails off. But search engines continue to drive relevant traffic, usually much more relevant traffic, and much more action-taking traffic over time. So really interesting stuff. Let's go on to the next slide. Cool. So one thing I wanted to talk about really quickly is with Facebook privacy and sharing. It's really important that if you are participating on Facebook and thinking about having an SEO impact, that you realize that only those people who share publicly are going to be able to be seen by Google. Google is allowed to crawl into Facebook, but no more so than the average browsing human. And so for that reason, you're not going to get any value if you put your privacy sharing settings up, or if people who are sharing and liking and those kinds of things have their privacy settings turned up. So do be aware of that and make sure that you use the appropriate settings. The day that Facebook announced that they had all these super privacy settings, I went in and changed mine so that everyone could see everything. Because I just kind of figured, you know what, I'm going to treat Facebook like a blog. They seem to have some issues with privacy anyway, so I might as well just pretend that everything on Facebook is public because it likely could be. And obviously this is a good thing from an SEO perspective too. So let's go one more. All right. So some quick things to think about with content marketing with Facebook. Obviously, you can claim your company page. Usually those are public, unless you specifically make them private, so I would strongly recommend doing that. You can then promote that stuff on your website, which means that you sort of attract Google's crawlers and attention and other people's attention over to your Facebook page, which then means you can get more likes and more shares of your content, which can then help you rank in search engines. So it's sort of this virtuous circle of search and social. One of the things that we do that we really like to do is using the RSS feed from our blog to post stories to our wall, and that works tremendously well for us. It means that we actually get quite a bit of engagement with Facebook. And actually, if we go to the next slide, you should be able to see some of that. Yeah, so this is XPortly. Someone was asking earlier about some tools. I think actually this it's not quite as pretty, but it mimics some of the cool functionality that Optify has. And I didn't realize that you guys had such cool stuff. So looking through Erez's slides, I'm definitely going to be looking at that, maybe recommending that to our community manager here. But you know, we've liked using XPortly a little bit. It shows stuff like this with the fan page activity, fan activity over time, you know, engagement by post type. You can see in there, right, that video content has got the highest engagement for us on Facebook. So that's kind of cool. In fact, I was going out with a friend of mine last Friday night, and she mentioned she's not in the SEO world at all, but she said, "I watched your Whiteboard Friday, and it was kind of cute." I thought to myself, yeah, well, you know, it's one of those interesting things about sharing on Facebook is that you attract new audiences, right? So I'm going to wrap up with, you know, just a few quick thoughts. Can we go to the last slide here? One of the things that I would highly, highly recommend, if you haven't checked it out already, Cupid does this great content that's really, in addition to being interesting and funny and sort of clever around analysis of dating profiles and what attracts people to dating websites and those kinds of things, and what photos work on dating websites versus don't, what messaging people have, etc. They do this really cool thing, which I think a lot of blogs have been starting to do. There's a WordPress plugin for it now, where if you scroll to the bottom of an article on their blog, this little popover appears saying, "Hey, OK Trends, send it to your friends." And there's the share, there's the stumble upon, Google Buzz, and the retweet button. So it's kind of slick because it invites you at the end of the reading process, the consumption process, to get that. Can folks still hear me OK? Did I somehow go on mute? No?
No, I believe you're still up.
OK, all right. Sounds good. So my my takeaway here would just be two things. You know, number one, sharing content that people are likely to share, or producing content that people are likely to share, is a huge win for both SEO and social, and the overlap is beautiful. And the second one is, if you can take those actions that incent the sharing and make the sharing easy, you're going to win even more. Let's, yeah, so talking about this, creating content that users want to share, it's just a beautiful thing, right? Go check out who those folks are who can spread your message and pursue them, right? That audience is going to be really, really effective. Cool. I think that's all from me.
All right, Rand, thanks so much for...
Yeah?
Oh,
my
you had...
pleasure. No, that's okay. I think we can, I'm a little over time, so.
All right, well, thanks for summarizing. You added a couple of great summary points there, and so I'm going to quickly summarize from Liz. What I took from this presentation, Liz, was lead with relationships and not tools. And the second one was solution is the new location. And then for Erez, we had social media is changing. You know, the inner working of search algorithms is impacted by that. And the second summary point that I took from Erez's presentation was changes require the tracking of SEO, the social and business KPIs in real time. And so there's a lot of tactical to be done. And Rand summarized himself there very well. Social media requires SEO expertise and vice versa, and build content for groups that are more likely to share. So we're going to jump to the Q&A section right now. We had a ton of really great questions, and I want to comment that we're going to answer all those in an upcoming blog post, and we will email that link to you. But we've got 3 questions, one for each presenter, and I'm going to start with Erez. Nick asked the question, do real-time updates for all search engines hold more temporary weight on search results? And if so, how do promoted trends from the Twitter weight as far as authenticity?
So I'll actually answer Nick offline, but I'll repeat my answer, and I'd love you to jump in on this as well, and Liz, if you have any insights. So I'll start with the second part of the question. How do promoted trends from Twitter weigh in as far as authenticity? Well, we're actually part of the beta program for promoting tweets. And if you look at the Twitter homepage now, you have promoted trends, promoted tweets, promoted companies. It's pretty early on in the cycle, so we don't really have good, significant data to point out the effect of promoted tweets on ranks. I would, however, suggest a theory that the more promotion you do, the more organic tweets you get, not only paid tweets, which looking at the data Rand shows probably has an effect on how you rank and how you show up in the search engines. As far as the real-time trends and how they affect the actual results, do they affect them over time or just a specific point of time? From some of the sampling we've done, when we've seen a temporary effect. So at the time a topic was trending on Twitter, that rank improved. And then when time passed, the effect of that trend or the effect of that real-time activity diminished. Again, we are yet to have clear aggregate data about how temporary that is, and is it temporary for all types of keywords, but that's the early data we're seeing.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with Erez's assessment on that. What we've observed time and time again is that tweets are exceptionally powerful, Facebook shares as well, in the short term, and occasionally in the long term they appear to have an impact as well. So the example I showed with the experiment, for See Your Impact, I think certainly suggests that there is some lasting impact to those that social sharing, particularly if it comes from a wide, diverse range of sources and appears to be authentic and is coming from people with high author authority and those kinds of things. I would suspect that Google and Bing are treating those more and more like, like links as opposed to temporal impact. But sort of in the short term, a couple hundred people tweet this, maybe it'll rank really well for the next 12 to 24 hours. So I would strongly recommend that for those of you who are thinking about temporal campaigns and trying to rank well for things that you know are going to be hot in the search world, hot in the social world, that you prepare those things with that temporal nature in mind. But certainly don't ignore the potential power of long-term value that could be coming from tweets and shares. And I think as Google and Bing refine their algorithms, learn more about the social world, see more people sharing stuff, it's quite possible that those metrics will change or shift in one way or another, either because they see social becoming more spammy and manipulative, and so they tone down those signals, or they see it being more authentic, which is sort of what I'm seeing at least, and they turn up those signals.
All right, so Liz, this question was for you. Any comments about targeting multiple audiences? LinkedIn audience wants certain content info, Twitter prefers tweets of photos, Facebook prefers my silly musings, and how it helps or hinders SEO and social media presence, separately or together. That question came from Nick.
Yeah, I partially answered it in the chat box, and it actually really segues really nicely with what was just being talked about. I think the really intelligent strategy on what Erez and Rand were just saying is that if you want to use social and search hand in hand, being aware of that temporal trend that you're seeing, the way to make it stronger is to target the audiences in multiple levels. So at the same time, use Twitter to connect the content to the professional voice that you've got on LinkedIn and to the more social voice that you've got on Facebook. I think Facebook is sort of the company social or the company picnic, and people aren't necessarily there to do business, but they meet with their business friends there. Use YouTube and Flickr. So it becomes a whole lot less temporal, I would think, if things are grounded. If those tweets and the group from which those tweets are coming from are grounded in Flickr, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and your blog, as well as Twitter, so that they're coming from multiple platforms across multiple times. And so, for example, if you're putting on an event like our event, you know, we also have a monthly chat, and we also always link to all the people in our community, and we talk about it on Facebook, and we have a group on LinkedIn. And so the things that link to our event are going on all year long, and they're going on in all places. So we're going out to the we bring different things to YouTube than we bring to LinkedIn. You know, it's a more formal discussion on LinkedIn, a more fun discussion on Facebook, a more visual, you know, educational discussion on YouTube. And often they're the same audience. And I suppose the best analogy in the real world is, I just found out recently that the Lifetime channel, TLC, and Bravo all have the same audience, but they all buy significantly different content. So, you know, packaging your content for the audience, where the audience is going to consume it. I mean, I go to McDonald's and I also go to the top of the Hancock. So, you know, I expect one thing in one place and another thing in another. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, thank you, Liz. So our last question comes for Rand, and Liz and Erez, you can chime in as well. Rand, if you're trying to optimize for keywords on your site, is tweeting or using social networks using these keywords, can this help you rank better for those keywords? That came from Alan, and I think some of the chat may have answered.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, Alan. So I think what you're saying is essentially, you know, when you tweet things, when you share on Facebook, you're often using the URL either in a shortened form or a non-shortened form. So you're not getting the anchor text that you normally would with a link, and so therefore optimizing anchor text is less a part of the social sharing experience. But my intuition says, and Erez, I don't know if you guys might have some data to back this up. Certainly we will in the next few months as we rerun these correlations. But my suspicion is that Google uses, much like they use phrases and words surrounding a link in a document, that they're going to use those same things surrounding a link in a share or a tweet. And that, I think, is really strongly suggests that if there are things that you want to rank for, you should obviously do good on-page SEO types of things, good internal linking types of things, good external linking, and probably good social sharing, right? So you don't want to be using irrelevant headlines in your tweets or your Facebook shares to promote a URL that you want to rank for something different. At the same time, I know that editorially, especially for press folks, sometimes conflicts with the, well, I want to have my attention-grabbing headline that's sort of more click-inducing, and then the other one that uses the keywords. And I would just say when those can overlap, it's a beautiful synergy. So that would be my overarching goal when you're mixing this SEO and social stuff.
Yeah, Rand, I absolutely agree. I mean, we don't have the full set of aggregate data, but when I think a great example is when you execute a Twitter campaign, you're using Twitter for business, and you execute a campaign, aligning with your keyword strategy helps align these newfound links or newfound votes from Twitter with your actual content. And I think the best analogy is how you do on-page SEO. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to overwhelm the user. You still want to keep the original message that this is about, but you want to make sure you use the right set of keywords. So if you take sort of the same ethical approach to on-page tweets as you do to on-page SEO, it aligns with an overall strategy.
All right, well, thank you to everyone. For those of you who are in listen-only mode, we're going to have a recap, the Q&A, recording and presentation available for download at optify.net/blog. And thank you to Liz Strauss from SOBcon and Rand Fishkin from SEO Moz and Erez Barak from Optify. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll catch you on the blog.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.